You want an explanation? We don't owe you one.
No, I mean, please, Rhonda. This is show business, not show friends. I mean, you are the one to disrespect us. You're the one who disregarded everything Nikki and I have done for this business. I mean, what did you expect? For us to sit on the sidelines and watch you?
I mean, you're the reason why Bree and I came back to compete. It made me cringe to watch you at the forefront of this evolution.
DMBs, do nothing Bellas. You guys weren't there to support me. You were there because there was a camera pointed at me, and never in my life have I seen such desperation for attention. You leached off of the names of your men. You plagiarize and dilute their movesets. You're not pioneers, you're a callous. You're relics of the past waiting to be eviscerated like smallpox.
Okay. So you think we're talentless, you think we're a disease, you think we're do-nothing Bellas?
We have broken more barriers than you ever have. We have knocked down more doors. You don't even compare to us at all.
Knock down doors.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Knock down doors.
My entire career, I've been knocking down doors. I've knocked down doors in judo, I knocked down doors in Strikeforce, I knocked down doors in the UFC, and now I'm knocking down doors here at home in the WWE. The only door you ever knocked down was the door to John Cena's bedroom. And he eventually threw you out of that exact same door.
Welcome to the Jam Report, episode 30, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And as you just heard, as I adjust my my levels here, wow, they held no punches back on this past episode of Raw, which I'll get into in a little bit. But want to get into the most important story that's going on out there. Unfortunately, it's no secret. And the manner that WWE is handling it right now, it's as if they're saying as if we are aware of what's happening, but at the same time, we just don't want to cut ties just yet because, of course, many speculating it's coming down to money, that they don't want to lose out on essentially millions of dollars, and maybe even more than that. But right now, putting all of that to the side, as I mentioned last time, there was this investigation ongoing from a journalist that writes for the Washington Post, who is a resident of the United States, but is from Saudi Arabia descent. And he goes to the consulate of Saudi Arabia based in Turkey to pick up paperwork that he was told that he needed in order to get his marriage moving forward, as his fiance was with him as well. He was asked to go in, pick up some documents, paperwork, fill them out, sign them, and the whole 9 yards, and then just have a nice day. But unfortunately, he walks in, but is never seen walking out. And I mentioned last time that there was no knowledge of what's happened, what's going on. But this week, unfortunately, some new light has been shed on the topic, and it's not looking good on all fronts. This is bigger than WWE. They're getting their flack from a lot of people, including from a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen, Congress people, that they should cancel their show mainly because of this, and it won't look good on them moving forward, considering what's happened. Now, I mentioned last time that one really doesn't have to do with the other in hindsight, but at the same time, I do understand what everyone being from, I guess, the governmental point of view and their relationships with Saudi Arabia in this case. And there's been a lot of political talk. Well, we need to be partners with them. We need to keep that relationship moving forward. And the White House even mentioned, like, well, we're selling them weapons because they're continuing the good fight against terrorism and all that. Depending where you stand on all this, either it sounds good, it's a good idea, or it just isn't, or it's just a bad idea. It's really tough and a really difficult position to be in, no matter which side you stand on. I try to keep this show political free. I do have opinions, I do have thoughts, but you know what? I just rather not express them here because it's not the time and place for it. But unfortunately, what I usually cover here has pretty much interacted with it, and again, it's just not good. So as of right now, in 2 weeks, WWE Crown Jewel is still a go, despite the bad news that has come out of Saudi Arabia. Excuse me. As Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, again, I apologize if I just don't have the linguistics to properly pronounce this man's name, may be dead. Apparently there's an audio that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has listened to and was given a transcript of the recording. And in said transcript, there is a description that the audio lasts for about 8 minutes. There are sounds of struggle and an apparent death by strangulation. According to the White House, it certainly looks that way in referencing that the journalist has passed away or was killed. So who knows where this goes as far as the WWE goes. They're sticking to their word as far as monitoring the situation from a very long distance. And it was apparent this whole week on WWE TV, starting with Raw, where literally no mention, not so much of the news I just shared. Why would they? I mean, it's not the time or place to do so. Then again, it's not their territory. But as of WWE, of whether or not they will move forward with the pay-per-view. So during the week, they removed all mentions of Saudi Arabia, including the date. Only the pay-per-view. I'm sorry. They mentioned only the date and the name of the pay-per-view. So the graphs or the logo of Crown Jewel, whenever it popped up on screen and also inside the arenas, as they were in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. for RAW and Smackdown, respectively, you will notice that the name of Saudi Arabia and the location have been removed. Only the network logo, obviously, the pay-per-view logo itself, the date, and the time. So this was a last-minute call to pull off, where it's like, okay, all eyes on WWE for the wrong reasons. So rather than just cave under pressure, at least as of now, this week anyway, they decided to intentionally not mention the name Saudi Arabia and moving forward as if nothing's changed for now. It's still, again, 2 weeks away. So there was also, apparently hopefully that's not dumb. Let me take care of this. Guess what? It was not. It's just one of those third party, we're still in the middle of midterm elections and it just won't let up on trying to get your vote. I really wish they'd done, mailing out brochures or announcements, things of that nature to your house. I think is still the way to go rather than just bother you at any random time. The latest call, not to get too far off subject here, but the latest phone call I've gotten from these robocalls or clone numbers, whatever you want to call them, was after midnight. And that's usually around the time I settle in and just want to just go to bed. I usually have my ringers really low or set to vibration. And it's on the side to the bed, off to the side of the bed. And yeah, I mean, the last thing you want is to be waking up all of a sudden and to see it's a number you don't recognize. And then I never picked them up. I never answered, just let it go to voicemail. And when I hear the voicemail the next morning, it's in a language I don't even speak. So, or in other cases, it's a representative of a representative wanting your vote. And just mail me your information and details, and I'll decide from there. But anyway, back to the main story that's going on right now. So it turns out back on October 6th of 2018, it was announced that the venue for Crown Jewel was changed from the King Fahd International Stadium to the King Saudi University Stadium. Even though they're both stadiums, but the original one, I believe, was a capacity of about 60 to 70,000. So now they moved to a much smaller venue, which holds about 20,000, maybe even less, depending on how the staging, the rampway, the setup, all that jazz is concerned. So not as big of an audience compared to Greatest Royal Rumble. So the WWE has faced calls to cancel the event with politicians from both sides, and they've been criticized, they being WWE, of the company's endeavors in Saudi Arabia. Questions were raised whether because of the position of the administrator of the small business, which is Linda McMahon, and former CEO of the WWE, and also had a executive position as well when she was there, could still be viewed as strictly a private business enterprise, meaning because this has really nothing to do with WWE, this being the ongoing investigation of a probably murdered journalist from the Washington Post, that they can move forward. And again, I understand both sides. I'm not trying to argue the decision or lack thereof, WWE, to basically keep it going, because it's just a business. This is nothing personal, but at the same time, you got to look at it from Jamal's, family point of view. They could care less about this. I mean, if the message is, well, America should, or pretty much for any country for that matter, but in this case, America, the United States, shouldn't have to do anything, business transaction or anything related, exchanging or importing, exporting between each other because of this one incident. I really don't know what is the right answer. If I want to be frank and personal and be real right now, the closest I've come to decide, I guess, if it was up to me, and then some of you are probably thinking, well, thankfully it's not, to, at best, and I probably said this before last time as well, to at best postpone everything to figure out what's going on. But right now, it's not looking good at all for everyone that's on the other side of what's been going on in the consulate, especially of Saudi Arabia in Turkey. Senator Bob Menendez urged the U.S. government to pressure WWE into canceling the event altogether, while Republican Lindsey Graham, among others, called for the WWE to reconsider their businesses and any and all other deals with Saudi Arabia. This includes their 10-year contract that they had with them. At the time, I didn't have all the details, but it was a multi-year deal, and multi-year translated into 10 years to have a number of events to be held in Saudi Arabia each year. So far, Crown Jewel will be the second one to finish off their first year in business together. And this has hit all fronts, including English comedian and political commentator John Oliver. I don't know if you heard this yet, but it's up on YouTube, who also weighed into the controversy on his show Last Week Tonight, criticizing WWE for what he saw as a blatant pro-Saudi propaganda. I mean, at the time before, and this happened before This Week in WWE TV, where all mentions were literally censored or just not mentioned at all. I'm sure he would have had a different perspective on this, but being quiet while still moving forward with the event, is the argument here now, I believe. Knox County Mayor and professional wrestler Glenn Kane Jacobs, that is, who is scheduled to compete in a tag team match, announced he will work at the event, contrasting reports that most WWE wrestlers felt uncomfortable working the event. Now, this has not been confirmed as far as other wrestlers who are scheduled to be at Crown Jewel being uncomfortable to a point where they don't want to go anymore. Whether it's a political move or just, hey, listen, I know what you're trying to do, WWE, but, it's really getting out of hand, and it's not going to make us look good. Or whatever type of, not transaction, but conversations that could have taken place supposedly between the talent and the front office of WWE. We just don't know. However, former WWE champion John Bradshaw Layfield spoke to Fox News in favor of the event in order to promote change. Change in what exactly? This is where I would, step in. When he was asked about it, nothing specific other than JBL, that is, other than just to cancel altogether because of what's happening. We were there a few months ago. They're allowing women to drive now, so that's changed. That change. So if we go this time, in light of all this, it promotes change. What change are you hoping to accomplish here? An entire country is being accused of murder of another country's citizen or resident, and it's causing a lot of turmoil in the political offices. But if you still go anyway, despite being lectured or urged to cancel, but it's going to promote change. Now, at first, I thought his response, JBL, that is, had to have been previously, written down for him as far as what statements a current or former WWE wrestler that is still in good terms with them should say if specific questions are asked, whether in public or in this case on a Fox News TV show. If that's not, it can't be. But then again, I doubted my own thought there because JBR does have experience in this field as far as being in business, as we all know, legit, outside WWE, and has tackled a few other political stories and would give logical responses, just to make you think from a different point of view, but still have your own opinion, which is fine by me. But then we get to Randy Orton. Randy Orton had very similar remarks when he spoke to TMZ. They found him at the airport and they spoke to him. And almost word for word, Randy Orton said the exact same thing that JBL did. So now my previous doubt, well, not doubt, but really my previous thought that I did doubt, now resurfaces like, wait a minute. How is that possible? Maybe I think JBL's came first, and Randy saw it somewhere, maybe on his phone, on YouTube, whatever, and said, "God, that's good. If I'm ever asked the same question, that's exactly what I'm going to say." Folks, I'm not against change, not at all. If it benefits everyone, maybe not everyone around the world. I know there are folks out there that prefer not to change anything as far as their way of life goes, and just not be bothered or not bother others from around the world, especially if you don't understand where they're coming from, what their culture is, what their, what they live for, what they stand for, who and what they follow and believe in, all that, more than likely will be different than yours. But if your position is to change and have everything and everyone exactly the same, then you're completely wrong and hypocritical, to be completely honest. But again, I got to argue, what change are you expecting here? Well, hopefully we'll change them so much that they won't carry anybody any concerts anymore, allegedly. Or change the fact that if you want to pick up some marriage documents, you go somewhere else and walk out the building. I mock, I do parodies here at times, but this is no laughing matter. I think WWE should now, if they haven't already, because this is a Friday, and all this broke just the past couple of days. I got most of my information from World News Tonight and their website and a couple of other sources, and it's not looking good for anyone. So I seriously hope that WWE considers to again, at least postpone. And that's my opinion. I'm not saying cancel. I'm not saying that we can't see Shawn Michaels a comeback match only specifically in Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel. You can have that here. I mean, you have Survivor Series coming up. They're vaguely somewhat pushing Evolution. And I'll get into that a little later on. But why is WWE focused just all on the Crown Jewel event? And for a World Cup that really isn't much of a World Cup, why even call it that? But you see where that leads into other arguments and not stick to the main source here. So if you want to send me hate comments or hate emails for that matter, IAmGoodOlJM@gmail.com. It's even in the description below, or leave a comment down below. But all I'm saying, as a fan, and depending if other details come out or other facts come out between now and my next episode, I'm just going to stick to WWE postponing Crown Jewel to a much, much later date. And the Saudi prince or the rest of the kingdom who are looking forward to the in-person watching Shawn Michaels' comeback match with DX versus the Brothers of Destruction, you have to wait on that. Damn of the advertising and promotions. Like, well, no one kept none of that in mind to allegedly do what they did with the journalist. And again, not that had to do with anything with WWE. Come on, those are worlds apart. But it's just unfortunate. And again, don't get me wrong. WWE has done a lot of ridiculous and things that were said and done that can never be taken back. And their excuse is usually, well, it's entertainment. Not when you're offending anyone, but they're like, well, in Hollywood, they do that on TV. They're okay. But how often do they do something offensive that they got to go into damage control and explain, like, well, listen, it's just entertainment. Hell, even things that led up to or after, during the aftermath of a tragedy. I hate to use this as an example, but after a school shooting about a year ago, and I can't remember exactly which one because there were so many, that season's American Horror Story, it happened the same week when a new episode was going to premiere, and they toned down, they edited it, like at the 11th hour, that episode, because and again, that particular TV show is, it's in the title, American Horror Story. You expect to see a lot of violence, and chances are maybe gore because it's in the title, again, horror. So I believe it was a dream sequence, and there was a shootout. There was a shooting. And the original cut is available on demand, but what aired was pretty much the aftermath of said violence and shooting. And there was a disclaimer at the beginning of the episode where, because in light of the events of this week, again, of that week's high school shooting or elementary school, again, I can't remember which one, they explained that they edited the episode, and if you want to watch the full version, go to the on-demand of FX. But otherwise, here's the show. There've been other TV shows that canceled entire episodes altogether, or just never air them at all. Okay, difference there is they responded after the tragedy, which is unfortunately way worse because it's real life. And when it hits too close to home, Hollywood, to be fair, they've had at times made the necessary changes or dealt with it properly, because they know it can and will offend a lot of people. And to them, that will affect their business. I don't want to get into this any further, but you you lose that argument. Once you say, it's done out of entertainment, when you get the backlash and responses, either from the network or the fans themselves, or you might lose money, a la changing the name of the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal last year for WrestleMania because Snickers got on you. Like, we can't lose that sponsor. They gave us a lot of money and candy. Yeah. Then you jump. Then you quietly make the changes and think, okay, it's the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. Oh, okay, how convenient. It's okay to be wrong, people. It's okay to be man or woman enough to admit that. God forbid that tarnishes your public viewing because you're a publicly traded company. Just grow a set for once. You're so quick. I'm sure a lot of you guys have read Road Dogg's comments on Twitter, and I think Goldust recently, basically lashing out to fans because they're responding to the lack of creativity on SmackDown, at least, or on WWE altogether. Like, you try running this business. You try doing this. Okay. You've been at that at years, and that's the best you can come up with, but yeah, you can lash out and say, hey, you tried this? I'm aware it's not easy. Hell, I'm here every week to come up with an opening, to be different. It's not always easy. Or just putting together these stories that at times I rather not share because it's just so harsh. Not that I have anything like that other than what's going on in the Saudi Arabia front. But it's what's happening, and I want to express my point of view. So again, you lose that argument once it gets into entertainment purposes. But here I am nearly half an hour into the show, and I've yet to talk about anything else. So I'll just wrap up this part of the story with a few other details after the Randy Orton interview with TMZ. And the WWE issued a statement to the New York Post this week over growing concerns about the talent traveling to Saudi Arabia. And they say, as always, we maintain an open line of communications with our performers as we continue to monitor the situation. And also, there were reports at SmackDown this week in D.C. that boos were heard whenever the Crown Jewel logo appeared on the screen, and even when The Undertaker would come out at the end of the show and mention it. I also talked about the WWE may lose money if the cancellation does go through. And according to Dade Haynes of Deadline, this could cost WWE about $16 million. So with all that said, well, I'll leave it up to them. And hopefully no one uses the phrase, no one in WWE that is, this is what's best for business. This week highlights in WWE TV. Let's start off with Raw. As Seth Rollins defeated Drew McIntyre to advance in the WWE World Cup tournament with a little help from Dean Ambrose. Though Dean Ambrose didn't like the fact that Seth and Roman Reigns see him only as a good laugh. Maybe planting more seeds in the eventual breakup of the Shield. Who knows? There was a women's battle royal announced to take place at Evolution, where the winner gets a future women's championship match. And this came right before a tag team match between Nia Jax teaming up with Ember Moon, taking on Dana Brooke, and the return of Tamina. I'm going to mention a lot of names that returned here, so hopefully everyone's following. Tamina returned nearly after 2 years. Honestly, felt a lot more than that, but I do remember her at the Survivor Series of 2016, and I believe she faced off against Nia Jax as well. And he was no different. It was a very similar encounter here. And Tamina looked great. Not too much, if at all. Ariel Maneuvers, I think she's going to become more of a powerhouse wrestler or character, if you will. And it showed here. I mean, I can't remember the last time or who was the last person to get Nia Jax off her feet, over her shoulders in this case, to deliver a Samoan drop. Was it Ronda? Oh, man, am I going senile already? It might have been Ronda not too long ago. But anyway, so the announcement was made for a battle royal, and this tag match was over. After the Faces win, Tamina confronts Nia and super kicks her. Suddenly, Ember Moon and Tamina toss Nia over the top rope and say, hey, this is what's going to happen in the battle royal. And then Ember tries to toss out Tamina, only for Dana to toss them both over the top rope. And then pose and flex her muscles, and they just move on to the next segment. And of course, you heard this at the top of the program where Ronda Rousey just cut this extreme promo on the Bellas. Ronda was trying to figure out exactly why the Bellas attacked her last week. Nikki says that we don't owe you an explanation, but they give one anyway. They say they didn't want to sit on the sidelines to watch Ronda get ahead of them, and are jealous that Ronda, I mean, they didn't say the word, but you can clearly hear it in the tone of voice that the Bellas were getting jealous. The Ronda was in the forefront of the pay-per-view, and Ronda didn't like the Divas era. You didn't hear it at the top of the program, but this is basically throughout the entire promo between the three back and forth this past Monday night on Raw. So do nothing Bellas. Hopefully that been a hashtag and it's going to trend real soon. And that they were craving the spotlight, leeching the names of their men. The Bellas say that they've knocked down doors than Ronda, more doors than Ronda, and only for Ronda to reply about knocking doors down in Judo, Strikeforce, UFC, and now in the WWE, and that the only door that Nikki ever knocked down was to John Cena's bedroom. Oh my goodness, good stuff. And then just as the comment was made, the Bellas looked like they were about to come down to the ring to jump on Ronda again, only to have local security, or in this case, local talent, dressed as security, get the snot being out of them, courtesy of Ronda Rousey, and they move on to the next segment. Dolph Ziggler defeated Dean Ambrose to advance into the World Cup tournament. Ambrose shoved Rollins on his backside after a ringside scuffle with Drew McIntyre. Now, in fairness, at this point, Ambrose was racing to his feet and may have not realized who it was that was there with him, being held back up. In this case, it was Rollins. But unfortunately, he rode back into the ring and ran into a straight super kick from the show off and ended the match. So more dissensions, more monkey wrenches being thrown in the gears of the Shield. Where is it all leading to? Roman Reigns would then come out and try to play a peacemaker on top of the stage between Ambrose and Rollins. And then you would have acting general manager Baron Corbin step out and go on a microphone and say he doesn't want to see the Shield break up on his watch. So he'll give them a chance to get things sorted out and back together in another rematch of a 6-man tag from the Super Showdown show. Shield taking on Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, and Braun Strowman for the main event of Monday Night Raw. Samir Singh returned after an ACL surgery and joined his brother and Alicia Fox to be in the corner of Jinder Mahal, where he had a match with Finn Balor. Another promo between Lita and Trish Stratus against Mickie James and Alexa Bliss for their Evolution. Yeah, it was pretty cut and dry, copy and paste repeat of last week. Earlier in the show, Baron Corbin ran into Kurt Angle backstage, who was still on vacation, sporting a Hawaiian shirt, a nice hat, shorts, and tells Angle that he will be in the handicap match with the AOP later on. So we see Obvious and not Kurt Angle in a conquistador costume and gets squashed by the AOP. His mask gets removed and we see that it's not Angle, obviously. No big surprise there. And it ended up being another local talent. Unfortunately, the name was never released. And on stage, you see Baron Corbin, who was watching all this. AOP looks at them with is it Eli Drake? I can't remember. Maverick Eli Drake. Oh my God. Maverick and the AOP looked all confused, and they looked back at Baron Corbin, who looked just as confused. And then from behind, you see Kurt Angle come out in his Hawaiian shirt, delivering an Angle slam on stage to Baron Corbin. So it looks like other seeds are being planted of the previous rumor that I mentioned a few weeks ago of a possible Survivor Series match between Team Angle and Team Corbin, more than likely for control over Raw. But here's the thing. If the plan is to use Kurt Angle moving forward beyond Survivor Series as an in-ring competitor, then why still make him why reinstate him as a general manager for Raw? And he'll be limited, meaning that he won't be able to compete. And in kayfabe, how fair will that be? But we'll see what they come up with here. Again, if the idea to move forward is to have Kurt Angle get back into the ring and have matches here and there, maybe not every week, but on a regular basis, then he shouldn't be general manager. Hopefully that wasn't a spoiler. Sasha Banks returned after about a month of absence, presumably due to a back injury that she needed to nurse and recover from. But she was here in the corner of Natalya along with Bayley, as Natalya defeated Ruby Riott from the Riott Squad. And in the main event, possibly an end of an era of itself, as Braun Strowman and company will break up after the main event 6-man tag team match, where at the end where we see Dolph Ziggler shove Seth Rollins onto Dean Ambrose while pinning Drew McIntyre, where Ambrose delivered the Dirty Deeds DDT. They argue, they being Dean and Seth, pronouns pal, and turns away from Seth. Seth spins Ambrose around only for Ambrose to kick him in the gut and attempt to deliver a Dirty Deeds onto Rollins. But Dolph from behind shoves Dean into Seth. A lot of shoving here. So they go skirmishing out of the ring. Braun then turns his attention to Roman Reigns, who got back into the ring, charges in the corner, but Roman Reigns moves out of the way. Strowman hits the corner post. Drew runs across and hits a Claymore kick intended for Roman Reigns, but he ducks and hits Braun Strowman instead. He goes flying out of the ring. Dolph will get back trying to attempt a zigzag on Roman Reigns after tossing out Drew McIntyre, only for Ziggler to be caught in the triple man powerbomb finishing move, and the Shield would win the match. Meanwhile, Braun Strowman is all pissed off. Powerbombs Dolph Ziggler. And at this time, on purpose, here comes Drew McIntyre running across the ring and delivers yet another Claymore kick, knocking down the big man. McIntyre walks away. Strowman is left in the ring looking just as confused as everyone else in the beginning of this match. And they go off the air. So that means, you got some explaining to do, Lucy. we have to wait till Monday night and find out Braun Strowman's point of view and the tag team champions' point of view. It'll be very interesting because basically you had two heel, or three in this case, but two sides, all heels, now turn on each other. When the idea was having the Shield turn on each other and eventually break up, but I don't know if this will be a swerve, really, because even those seeds were planted ahead of time for Strowman, Ziggler, and McIntyre. So again, it'll be very interesting to see. And eventually you got to focus on this, if it's still on, the triple threat between Roman Reigns defending the Universal title with Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel. And also Seth Rollins being the Intercontinental Champion. Just get back to singles runs. You can still be the Shield when necessary, but both you guys are holding individual titles that are not seeing the light of day as far as being defended. But again, all focus was on Crown Jewel, unfortunately, and didn't see the reason why to include, in this case, Seth Rollins. But he's one of the best, and they want to crown or determine who is the greatest of all time or the best in the world in their minds. Why not? So SmackDown celebrated their 1,000th episode this week. No Dwayne Johnson, no Rock, but he did tweet out congratulating SmackDown for reaching this milestone of 1,000 episodes. And the show kicked off with the returning Truth TV. And my God, did Carmella look hot that night. Excuse me. So Truth and Carmella celebrating SmackDown 1,000. And then one by one, 3 out of the 4 McMahons would come out for Stephanie, then Shane, and Vince himself, who many thought he would not do. Wonder why. And wasn't much of a surprise. I mean, you had to expect, similar to Raw 25, you had to expect Vince to appear at some point. But just like Raw 25, it was at the beginning of the show here. And it's like, all right, let's get to entertaining, because the E stands for entertaining. Yeah, what does the second W stand for? Anyway, so they continue to do their dance break, or the 7-second dance break, or whatever they're calling it. But honestly, I was entertained by this, mainly because of bringing back the Truth TV segment that was canceled. But we'll see where they go. The Usos defeated the team of Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, who are champion and challenger heading towards Crown Jewel. Very interesting that they teamed them up here. They've done this before. Like, the first comes to mind, SummerSlam 92, where the Warrior and Macho Man were forced to team up to take on the Nasty Boys, or at least forced to get along in a tag match, as they were going into their own match for the championship at SummerSlam in Wembley Stadium. So there was a miscue from champion and challenger, as 2 super kicks were delivered by the Usos to Daniel Bryan after an accidental forearm from Bryan to AJ, and the Usos get the win. So not often do we see the super kicks, at least a double super kick from the Usos to be used as the finisher. But I mean, there was a time that everybody was ODing on these super kicks. It was just ridiculous. Evolution, the faction, not the pay-per-view, reunited as Randy Orton was behaving surprisingly, considering what he's been up to the past few weeks. There weren't any finger snappings or ear twisting here. Randy was on good behavior. Along with Ric Flair, Triple H, and the returning Batista, everyone cut a promo as they celebrating again SmackDown 1000, picking out a few memorable moments in their career together or individually. But the highlight here was Batista pointing out Triple H, how much he's changed the business for the better, and that he's accomplished everything except beat him. So there was ooh and ahs in the audience, and there was a bit of a stare down. And it lasted long enough where Ric Flair realized, oh, I should break this up and pull them apart. But they hugged it out. So are there potential? Was this a teaser? Batista returning? I mean, there hasn't been any updates, but if he freed up his time that he would have taken to film Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, then I guess Batista will be available for a comeback here. But he does have a few other projects going on. I mentioned on my Instagram that it was rumored that Batista might join James Gunn, the original director of the two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, that James Gunn may direct the sequel to Suicide Squad, and that Bane can return, and that Batista could portray the character Bane in that movie. So right now they're just rumors. It's a possibility. I could see that. I don't know which particular version of Bane they will go with, the intelligent version that we saw in The Dark Knight, or the assassin version that we've seen in the animated series and other carnations that weren't live action. Or just a big old brute running around beating the crap out of people and stealing their wallets. Who knows? But we shall see. The Miz defeated Rusev in a less than 2-minute match to qualify and advance in the World Cup tournament. There was a lot of portions of the show cut off. I mean, a lot of guys didn't get their entrances on TV. What they did was, in the opening for SmackDown 1000, is have this nice video package of all the moments and highlights of the entire series. And then when they will come back from commercials, they will show photo stills of the very same video package that they showed earlier in the show. And that took away from the entrances from a lot of these guys, including Miz and including Rusev. So this literally 2-minute segment. The match had already started. There's a bit of a scuffle. Aiden English comes out to interfere, distracting Rusev and take advantage the Miz did to get the victory. Lana will respond to deliver a Richard kick to the nays of Aiden English, and that was it. King Booker and Jerry the King Lawler, two kings here, return as guest commentators as they sat next to the original commentating desk, but they took over the New Day pancake version of the commentary table to provide the play-by-play during the SmackDown Tag Team Titles Championship match between the New Day and The Bar. Turns out Booker and Jerry were just useless here. They missed their cues. At times, there was so much dead air where I believe they were supposed to speak, but they just stared blankly into their monitors or towards the ring and said nothing. And they try to save the moments, they being the original commentators, but it was so obvious they had no clue of what they were doing. But this didn't take away the fact that the Bar defeated New Day and regained the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Very interesting to see that it was done here, but I guess they had to do something just to keep the show relevant and very up to par, because the ratings improved a little bit for Raw this week and improved a lot for SmackDown as they've been dropping. They've been in decline for the past few weeks. More Raw than SmackDown, but definitely was on the up and up this week, and that's good for them. And in the main event, saw for the first time ever, Rey Mysterio Jr. returned. Again, he got no entrance. By the time they got back from commercial, more photo stills from the video, and Rey was already in the ring. But Shinsuke got a full entrance. So anyway, the match was very good. I thought there weren't any missteps or mixed cues especially for two guys who never worked with each other, at least in a live crowd. And Rey looked great. Looked like he never missed a beat ever since his return, initially back at Greatest Royal Rumble. But he's kept really busy since then. And Rey Mysterio will defeat Shinsuke Nakamura, and Mysterio will now advance to determine the best in the world at Crown Jewel. And with literally minutes to spare, I'll say it came down to about 5 minutes. When the match was over, Shinsuke was rolling out of the ring, but Rey was still left in there celebrating a little bit, and then you hear the gong. It cuts away to a wide shot of the audience. Shinsuke, the referee, Rey Mysterio are all gone. They disappeared. I guess Undertaker might have teleported them backstage because, hey, it's my time now, bitches. So here comes the Undertaker. And I'm like, oh my God, they got 5 minutes and Taker's going to do his steady Michael Myers walk to the ring. Yeah, that goes about 3 minutes. So Taker gets into the ring and just basically reestablished what he had already said with Kane the previous night of accepting the challenge at Crown Jewel, and that D-Generation X at Crown Jewel will rest in peace. Well, thanks for coming, Undertaker. Good to see you, as always. And the cameraman just followed Taker back up the ramp. He did his salute, his pose, and they went off the air. Literally right on time. Imagine if SmackDown had 3 hours, but please don't do that. But it doesn't end there unless you follow WWE on social media, particularly on Facebook. James Ellsworth was rumored to be returning to SmackDown, but he wasn't on TV, obviously. But he was backstage where he crashed and hijacked Mike Rome's description and highlights of what he saw and what he enjoyed of the show. All of a sudden, you see James Ellsworth coming in from off camera. And he's like, I'm here. I was meant to be here. I was supposed to be here. And here I am for SmackDown 1000. And just takes the microphone away and telling the fans that you can expect Ellsworth to appear at SmackDown 1001, 1002, 1003. So he goes on, and eventually the camera fades out because I'm guessing Ellsworth is still counting. And no one smarting him up and say, hey, SmackDown's moved on to the next town. Why are you still here counting? Over on 205 Live, Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak went to a no contest after Gentleman Jack Gallagher, and then shortly after, the Brian Kendrick came down to interfere. And I believe this is going to lead to a tag team match next week on 205 Live. And in the main event, saw Tony Nese victorious in a fatal 5-way, defeating TJP, Leo Rush, Gran Metalik, and Cedric Alexander, who is yet to get his rematch for his Cruiserweight title, by the way, ever since Super Showdown. But no prize here really for the winner, just bragging rights, I guess, that Tony Nese defeated 4 of the Cruiserweights and is going to move on or maybe even be considered for a title match. Who knows? NXT saw the return of Aleister Black officially and interrupted a match between Nikki Cross and Bianca Belair. Aleister Black's focus was on Nikki Cross, got on the microphone and said, or told Nikki, tell me what you know. So Nikki was a bit hesitant, slowly approached Aleister Black here, and eventually whispered whatever it is that she knows. And you can slowly see Aleister's reaction and expression. He was getting pissed. Drops the microphone and storms out of the ring and heads to the back. Hopefully we'll find out this week what happened or what it was exactly that Nikki Cross told Aleister. The referee stops the match between Shayna Baszler defeating Britt Baker after attacking the elbow and stomping on it. And referee took discretion and stopped the match in favor of Baszler and won by referee stoppage. Good to know because she needs to be built up a little more, Baszler that is, going into Evolution for a rematch between Kairi Singh for the NXT Women's title. Oni Lorcan and Danny Broach defeated Tian Bing and Rocky after pinning Rocky from a double team DDT. I think they're going to come up with a finishing. I don't think this is their finishing move officially per se, but as good as it looked, I'm suggesting a better double team move as a finisher than an ordinary DDT, but that's just me. And the War Raiders defeated the Undisputed Era by disqualification after the returning, a lot of returns, Bobby Fish and all 4 members of the Undisputed Era would lay out the War Raiders as NXT comes to an end. And this all leads, as far as NXT is concerned, into the upcoming post-Christmas show at Madison Square Garden from the WWE, as New York will get a dose of NXT in a huge 5-on-5 tag team match where you will see, and will be made official on December 26th, Pete Dunne, Johnny Gargano, Ricochet, Velveteen Dream, and the returning Aleister Black taking on NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa and all 4 members of the Undisputed Era. Of course, cards are always subject to change, but this is a phenomenal for New York City fans, as NXT is easily the hottest brand in WWE, and this is the early taste of what's to come in the new age of MSG, ahead of the G1 Supercard presented by Ring of Honor and New Japan coming in April. Thankfully, all that wishy-washy nonsense that after the first initial announcement made that the G1 Supercard would take place at the Garden on WrestleMania weekend, hey, gotta make everyone happy somehow. You at least try, but don't. Thankfully, they didn't. But just don't interfere, WWE, where others can make money, and the fans, the public can pay to go be entertained by a different promotion or a different brand. In this case, ROH and New Japan. Speaking of which, Tama Tonga sure made the wrestling fans feel and look very interesting, as this week and throughout, really, the bad boy celebrated his birthday by unleashing several tweets wishing his former Bullet Club compatriots good luck in their possible new stomping grounds of WWE, and even had an interaction with Hangman Adam Page. So, yeah, this was definitely a rumor running around. And about the same time, Tama Tonga issued warnings to Finn Balor and Carl Anderson, saying, "Don't forget what they did to you." Well, Adam Page has made no secret about it, and I guess the rumors are coming more and more into light about jumping over to the WWE. And honestly, I don't know all the details as far as relationships in the business between all these names mentioned, and others pointed out, well, yeah, AJ Styles part of that, and Luke Gallows as far as Bullet Club goes. And no, I get that, but I'm saying as far as what exactly they did to you, that's what I miss. And unfortunately, I don't follow as much as New Japan Pro Wrestling as I want to. There's just so much going on. I'm not subscribed to New Japan World, I think it's called, their streaming services. So this caught my attention because, like, oh, someone else is jumping ship to WWE and able to get bits and pieces of info. And you know what? I'm digging it because they've teased it several times now, they being WWE, about Bullet Club. Not to bring them together because they were split up so many times already. But I believe there was a couple of years ago at SummerSlam, AJ, Carl, and Gallows were hanging out backstage, and here comes Finn Balor. They didn't give the too sweet salute, but a lot of the fans in the audience realized and recognized, like, oh, hey, just for visuals, just for that. And a little bit, in a sense, WWE acknowledging it's like, okay, we know that you know who these guys are. So here's a little something for you. And then later on, I believe it was later on the following year, AJ Styles was flying back from South America to fill in for Bray Wyatt, who fell ill, where he was supposed to be Sister Abigail. But instead, Bray Wyatt was replaced by AJ Styles to take on Finn Balor. And at the end, they gave the too sweet salute to each other. And all this led to that Survivor Series that year. So, yeah, great to see, whether it was planned or scripted or going, just improvising on the fly. Yeah, it was great visuals, and happy to see that. Hopefully, they do some more of that said acknowledgement of the previous Bullet Club whenever Adam Page debuts. Question is where, NXT or main roster, but we'll see what happens. This I like to call like a brother, like brother. Pro Wrestling Stories released an article revealing that Lanny Poffo is making his way to New Japan to audition for a possible color commentary role. On the latest episode of The Genius Cast, Poffo responded to a report from the Wrestling Observer which stated his name had come up in conversation as a possible replacement for Don Callis. Lanny would go on to say, "I'll tell you what I know. Michael Craven and New Japan met at September 1st All In. He asked me if I would be interested in holding a microphone and be a color commentator for New Japan, and I responded, wow, that would be great." Lanny Poffo would then later on explain that the conversation led to an invite for an audition in Japan on October 23rd. So this hasn't happened yet. Lenny would eventually head out there. And Lenny would add, they bought me a ticket to Tokyo from Tampa. And I'm going to get there on a plane and do my very best to be an asset and not a liability. New Japan is a very exciting group of people, and I feel very lucky to be invited. In the meantime, I'm retired, but I like to keep flexible and open for exciting opportunities like this. So kudos to Lanny Poffo, and hopefully this works out. And I mentioned, for those who don't know, like brother, Lanny Poffo's late great brother, Macho Man Randy Savage, was a color commentator during his quote-unquote retirement. But turns out that he was just taking time off to heal a few injuries, and eventually made his way back to the company, or back into the ring, I should say, for the World Wrestling Federation in very late 1991, feuding with Jake the Snake Roberts. But Lanny Poffo has this distinguished voice, and those kind of voices that you want to listen to. Hopefully, some people feel the same way about mine, but it's the kind of voice that you want to hear narrations from, or maybe have a few audiobooks read to you, similar to Jesse Ventura. Just wow, I like your voice, man. Just, talk some more. So, again, hopefully it works out. Speaking of podcasting, Mikey Whipwreck took to Twitter to announce that he and fellow ECW original Jerry Lynn will be doing a podcast entitled Front Row Material, hosted by Mike Freeland. The Whipwreck and Lynn will discuss the extreme ongoings of the company, they being ECW, on the road, backstage, in the ring, and ringside at Swanson and Ritter in South Philadelphia. So I think more and more of former or retired pro wrestlers that don't have much else going on, when they're not being booked anywhere really in the world, that they could take a day of the week and share stories. I mean, I say for the most part to clear up airways, if any. I mean, there are always two sides of a story, and you want to hear from their point of view as well before getting into, say, disagreements or arguments about it. But yeah, good for them. Definitely, I'll listen. I'll tune into whenever their first episode drops. New Japan Pro Wrestling put out a release on their website to confirm that Will Ospreay will miss the Road to Power Struggle Super Junior Tag League Tour and will be out of action until November 1st. He is reportedly taking time off to heal up so that he can focus on the Never Openweight Championship match between Tai Chi. According to SC Scoops, Impact is currently in talks to bring back Alberto El Patron back to the company. He most recently left Impact when he no-showed the Lucha Underground versus Impact Wrestling event during WrestleMania weekend. Before that, he was the key act and held the company's main title. Impact believes that his personal issues have subdued and are looking to have El Patron return to the Las Vegas television tapings in November. He's currently training for a return to MMA and works for the mixed martial arts promotion Combate Americas as their president. And I say, okay, everyone deserves second chances. And I think this will be literally Alberto's second chance with Impact. Don't know so much of his personal issues being subdued. And I mean, he did make a few unnecessary comments about Paige, even though names weren't mentioned. But still, that's poking the bear. But we'll see what happens, and hopefully he can keep business and personal stuff where they belong. Charlotte Flair, unfortunately, is in hot water, but she recently worked on a book with her father, Ric Flair, and now she's into some legal trouble. In Second Nature, Charlotte discusses her prior marriage to Ricky Paul Johnson. In it, she claims that Johnson, who has 3 children, is sterile and unable to conceive children. Talking about keeping things private. Furthermore, the book says that he was fired from jobs over illegal drug use, which he denies. These claims are the basis of his lawsuit, he being the ex-husband, where he is seeking to gain damages from his now marred reputation. WWE are also named in the $5 million lawsuit for marketing the book. Responded to the lawsuit by telling TMZ that we recently viewed what appears to be a meritless lawsuit, and we will defend ourselves. Again, that's the representative talking to TMZ. Ric Flair declined to comment on the lawsuit. That's one of the, one of the many, but I think more so than any others, issues when deciding to write a book of your life, and obviously you're going to include everyone you've met, or just about everyone you remember meeting in your life, and your relationships with them, what you might have accomplished together, what you've done together. I know it's not going to come down to every single detail like Sunny did, describing her relationship with Shawn Michaels, which was a little too much detail if you ask me, but it is what it is. It sold and made money for her, good for her. But this is almost at the same level. Why would you say that? Unless you got something against the guy to this day, or holding any ill will, grudges, feuds. I mean, as far as I know, I'm okay, but I don't know how other men would feel about knowing that they can't have children, they can't conceive at all with the one they love to carry on their tradition or the family name. It's tough. I mean, there are alternatives and other options, but wouldn't you like to try first the old-fashioned way, and for this to be out there for everyone to read? I mean, you should at least, if you're going to include this, and this is my advice for everyone, if you're going to include something like this, something this personal, at least get the okay from that person, whether you're on good terms or not. Nothing good can come out of that, especially if you're not on speaking terms, but yet you still want to write a book about your life that more than likely is going to include them. Get the okay first, or at least be at the very best. Maybe not mention names. Or there was one time this guy or whatever. I mean, let the people that are aware of this, that know you better, which is a very small number compared to the rest of the world. Let them realize and put 2 and 2 together. Like, oh, you're talking about this guy, aren't you? Like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm not going to say that because the rest of the world don't know who he is. Be discreet. It's not really that difficult. And hopefully this works out for everyone. Kevin Owens but he made a rare Twitter appearance to reveal that he indeed underwent double knee surgery earlier in the week. Word is unknown of a time frame for Kevin Owens for a return, as he obviously now will be in recovery and eventually be going through physical therapy and rehabbing. The original estimated return, according to Dave Meltzer, was that Owens could be out 4 to 8 months, depending on the severity of the injury, but maybe longer than that. Get well wishes go out to Kevin Owens. Hang in there, buddy, and hopefully we'll see you back as soon as possible. PW Insider is reporting that both Ivory and Molly Holly will be appearing at the WWE Evolution pay-per-view on October 28th at the Nassau Coliseum. The last time Molly Holly was seen was her appearance at the Women's Royal Rumble back in January. NJPW Insider is also reporting that Medusa may appear at Evolution as well, although that's more rumor than anything else. Molly and Ivory were in talks from the stories I've gathered, at least as far as celebrating women in WWE wrestling. So it makes sense. As far as Medusa goes, and yeah, she's a Hall of Famer, and it would not make any sense whatsoever not to reach out to her at least, but it wouldn't surprise me if Medusa or Alundra Blaze makes an appearance in some capacity. I just hope they don't do what they did this past week with the former general managers of SmackDown, where they literally had a couple of second cameos on screen, one after another, and that was it. No promo, no coming out to the arena and acknowledging the fans, nothing like that. 7'3" Jordan Omagbian, former center of the South Florida Bulls, along with Matt Riddle, Chelsea Green, Punishment Martinez, Mia Yim, Daniel Violt, and Humberto Carrillo, former Ultimo Ninja in Mexico, are all among the new class of the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. And honestly, I'm more proud of Mia Yim, not that I'm discouraging all the other names that I mentioned, but for a long time, Mia Yim, or the former Jade, it was, I guess, like a seesaw conversation where at one time WWE didn't have anything for her, so she spent some time in Impact and on the independent scene, and then she participated in the first ever Mae Young Classic, and even then wasn't offered a contract. So again, returned to Impact and went around the world, and here she is in the second annual Mae Young Classic and was offered an NXT contract. And I was one of the very few people to meet her a couple of years ago in New York, and this is when she just started, or shortly after starting as Jade in TNA or Impact. And I met her outside the hotel everyone was staying in. I just went up to congratulate her and say, hey, I hope you make it at least to the WWE. I mean, from what I've seen, you look great, you are great in the ring, and they could benefit from someone like you. And she's like, oh, thank you very much, appreciate the comments, And I was, she was kind enough to take a picture with me, and and here we are. Sometimes these things take a while, but you work hard and then it pays off eventually. It's just gotta have some patience, but never stop working hard at your craft, and you eventually become one of, if not the best of all time. Hall of Famer Mark Henry has another reason to celebrate, as he accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award at the second annual Carl Ramsey Awards last week in Manhattan. Ramsey is a former New York Knick and has established the awards in 2017 to recognize others in New York's basketball network who have displayed 4 characteristics embodied by Mr. Ramsey, including excellence, dignity, the commitment to community, and perseverance. So congratulations to Mark Henry. Dave Meltzer has reported that Fox will position SmackDown among their sports blocks, with NFL football securing the Thursday and Sunday blocks. SmackDown will be taking the Friday one, obviously, remaining on Friday nights. In preparation for the move to take place, executives would like to see the show have a more sports center feel. Good luck with that. As I mentioned in my earlier rant, if you will, about entertaining and all that jazz. Honestly, growing up, I put the sport ahead of the entertainment. And in a strange way, how crazy that sounds, I still do. If it was up to me, I prefer not to have too much. Some is okay, but too much of the comedy shtick that half the time is not funny. Too much of the dramatic scenes, if you will, hoping you get the daytime Emmy Award nomination. It's just overkill. And to ask a company that's been doing that for over a decade now, well, pretty much since their existence, but more obvious than anything else, and putting aside the sport aspect of it, and there's still an argument to be made there. I think it was Bruce Pritchard Well, the term, the name, or the genre of pro wrestling has always been put down. So we don't call ourselves pro wrestling. We're sports entertainment. Okay, but it's not the term, the name, what you prefer to call it in sports entertainment. That's not over with the fans. Unless you have them read cue cards, 9 out of 10 times, if not more so, when it comes to describing, in this case, WWE, it's always going to be wrestling or pro wrestling. And I made this mention plenty of times. I don't remember the last time I walk into a Monday morning office and have one of my colleagues walk up to me and say, "Hey, did you happen to catch last night's sports entertainment pay-per-view?" That's never happened. I've never said that. Chances are I never will, because it's not because I grew up with those terminologies and that's how it was described to me, which it was. But that's what it is. It's basically an ancestor of Greco-Roman wrestling from back in the days and the Olympics. That's what it is. It was just transformed into what it is now, where you're not just wrestling on these padded mats. I mean, it's a boxing ring, and we've all seen the curtain's been pulled back many times. We know what it's made of, what it consists of, where the men and women are slamming each other on a weekly basis. It's an offshoot of the Olympics, of Olympic wrestling. Just call it what it is. And again, not to mention one of your W's in WWE, that's what it stands for. Right before entertaining. Oh my God, I just discovered a revolution here. It's always been in front of you the entire time, folks. Why consist of calling it something that is not going to get over with the fans? If it hasn't been to this point, among other things, it probably never will. But all I got to say to Fox is good luck with that. So I'm near the end of this week's episode, and unfortunately, I'm going to end it on some sad news. And I contemplated at what point of the show I wanted to share this, but everyone knows at this point. But I'll share some good news from my part after the fact. So I'm not trying to make my announcement more important than this one, because in comparison, it's not. It's unfortunately part of life, and it happens, and we all have our downtime. We all set time aside for ourselves to deal with it. And I couldn't imagine what the friends and family of Richard Van Slater, better known as Dirty Dick Slater in pro wrestling, passed away this week at the age of 67. As of now, there's no cause of death yet. I would assume there's going to be an autopsy, but as of right now, all reports that I came across did not have a result or cause of death. Slater wrestled in several promotions during his 20-plus years, including different runs in Georgia Championship Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Mid-South Wrestling, WCW, a brief stint in the WWF. His last appearance on the World Wrestling Federation was on May 4th of 1987 during an episode of Primetime Wrestling where he lost to the Natural Butch Reed. Also runs in All Japan Pro Wrestling, the AWA, and among many, many other promotions where back in the old territory days. Slater has held the NWA's United States Championship along with the NWA television title, and along with the Barbarian, was a WCW Tag Team Champion. My thoughts, prayers go out to the fans, the friends, and the family of Richard Van Slater. A very tragic loss. No doubt Hall of Fame bound, well deserved. He just unfortunately will not be there to accept it, but I know his beloved family will be there to accept on his behalf. So you know what? I think I'll save my other announcement for another time. It's going to happen next week, but just follow me on social media to know what it is. It just doesn't feel right to say something now after that mention of a passing of another pro wrestler, another human being. So what I'm going to do is here pay my respects and offer a 10-bell salute to the late great Dick Slater. And for everyone else who's curious to know about my announcement, later on today I will post them on my social media channels: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And hopefully everyone will tune in for that. But for now, thank you for joining me on this latest episode of the Jam Report. I will be back. I will be back next time. Until then, be safe, be good, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time.